Hey, everybody, welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm super excited to introduce you all to Nathan today. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on your show as well, which I'm sure we'll get into in today's topic. So, can you first off just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. But before I do that, can I give you a big thank you?
Yes.
Um, on the last conversation we had, you shared a story that was deeply impactful for me. You told a story about how um, you originally, for the first years of your show, just had the brand of your show, an elegant, beautiful name, right? And then a consultant came in and said, okay, put a colon and then put your keywords after it. Am I remembering right?
Yes,
The
exactly.
story? Okay. So we've gone in and we've been doing that for our shows and for our client shows. And I am embarrassed that we haven't done it before. And I just want to give I mean, we've done it a little bit before, but not
Yeah.
like we should have. And I just want to give you kudos and credit for that strategy and advise anybody that's listening, if you do a podcast and you want an elegant name, go for it. Do your elegant name first, but then do a colon and then describe it with keywords that people are actually searching for. So if, for example, you do a show about China adoption, don't just call it the red thread. Call it the red thread colon China adoption podcast, right? So that they can get the right keywords. When they go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, they can actually find you under the keywords they're searching for. And it should result in a lot more traffic than what you'll see with just an elegant title.
Thank you. I'm so glad that that resonated and that your clients are utilizing that tip.
Yes.
My coach, Derek, he gave that to me. I mentioned him on your show, and he's really great and has been in the podcasting world for I want to say almost 10 years. So his expertise really helped me gain visibility too.
Yeah, brilliant strategy. Okay, so to answer your question, I am a serial entrepreneur. I've spent 30 years now creating and growing and selling digital ventures. Um, I've built and sold three of my own, and I'm working on number four right now, which is called PodUp. PodUp is a podcasting platform, an all-in-one podcasting platform. Think of what Shopify is for e-commerce, where you have all of these different tools brought together into one platform to create a venture with one username, one password, and 100 different tools. We are that for podcasting. We have 74 different tools that are integrated together, username and password all together. You don't have to download big files and upload big files. We have 11 monetization tools built in, 18 AI tools built in, all these different tools in one place. And and that's what we're doing now. We've had a lot of businesses that come to us and say, I need a podcast and I love your software, but I just don't have time. And so a lot of our business is businesses coming to us and they record their episodes, but then they hand about everything else back over to us. And so we'll book their guests, we'll edit their videos, write their blog posts, create their social content, create their podcast website. We will publish everything, we'll syndicate everything out to 20 different channels. We'll repurpose their video into maybe 12 or 15 different types of content and then publish it out to maybe 20 different channels. We'll then grow their podcasts. We have engagement guarantees for every contract. So we've gotten so good at this over the years that we'll guarantee how much traffic you get. And then we'll do all the work to make sure you get there. We'll run your paid ads, do your SEO. We'll book you on other shows, a lot of fun things to just get you traffic. And then we we are kind of unique that we roll out your monetization too. So we'll help you figure out a unique monetization strategy. There's more than I think we have 24 different monetization strategies that we can roll out for you. And so then we pick the ones that are best for you, and we'll help you roll out the technology. We even like if you have a course, we have a copywriter that helps you create your course, right? We'll actually help you execute it and get your funnels created, your membership created, put those monetization strategies in place. So
That's
that's what we do.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's really great to hear because even as being a podcaster myself, I'm fortunate that I had an editor since the beginning. But frequently on this show, people will ask us, what kept us going, for 5 years. And honestly, it's because all I have to do is show up and record, which sounds like exactly what you can offer your clients with the added monetization, which we've never had a guest on that really talks about that side of podcasting. Can you share maybe some of the growth that you've been able to create for your clients through your platform?
Yeah, we're kind of in a different side of the market. We're a software company, like a Riverside or a Descript or something like that. But we've where most of those have focused on creating maybe 4 or 5 tools, right? We're the first company that's been stupid enough to try to bring that all together. And we put 6 years and $6 million into this. And then we accidentally found a different market where all of our other all of our other software clients seem to be focused on kind of this do-it-yourself clientele. And we've kind of found we accidentally created this market for business podcasting where the businesses come to us and it's kind of this all-in-one solution in one place. And then because we accidentally found this business market, um, and the businesses started asking us to do ourselves, we actually went to India and we got a building and we have between 40 and 50 employees now. And we have this amazing team that does the editing and the quality assurance and the copywriting and the marketing and the producers. And we've just built this whole team around it. So because we put so much into the software and because we have this amazing team in India, we can do it crazy cheap. We can do it for like a third the cost of what it cost us, or 25% the cost of what it costs us to do it in the United States. Most businesses can come to us and we can do it for less than the cost of a minimum wage employee because of how we've set this up. So it's not just better quality, but it's also incredibly cost effective and incredibly feature rich.
Wow, that is so cool. Can you tell us more about how you have worked in entrepreneurship for quite some time and your experience is so robust from like for our listeners to share some background, adoption.com to podcasting. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey? And I mean, clearly your experience is what's led you to be able to build such an amazing company that's cost effective for your market, which is important for all of us
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. It's a fun journey. I'm an incurable creator. Like I've got to be creating something or I die. That's just
Yeah.
who I am. And when I was a college student, my junior year, um, I so my freshman year in college, I had never even heard of the internet once. I'd never seen it, never heard of it. It just wasn't a thing yet. It was there, but it just wasn't mainstream. And then I decided I was going to leave for 2 years and do missionary work. And so I went to Brazil for 2 years and I worked in some very rural, poor parts of Brazil and fell in love with these street kids. And I vowed that when I came back from my mission, I would do something to make a lasting difference in their lives. And so I came back, and in 1995, I come back, and the internet had exploded while I was in Brazil. And I saw this as this brand new opportunity. It's kind of like homesteading was, right? Think about the days in America where there was all this land and you could just kind of go pick a piece of land. And if you stayed on the land and took good care of it and stayed there long enough, like you could own it. It was yours. And it felt like the internet was kind of like that. If you just picked your niche and you did a good job at it and you consistently kept doing it, you could own the niche. And that was pretty much true back in those days. And so I decided that the niche I was going to own was adoption. And I wrote a business plan as a thesis in college to help children through adoption my junior year. And that ended up winning a couple of business plan competitions. And we started adoption.com in a computer lab of my business school. There probably aren't even computer labs in colleges anymore, but there used to be this place where there were all these computers that everybody went and did their homework and their assignments. And that's where we started adoption.com. And some of the TAs and developers there kind of helped us get it going. And we grew that for decades and became the world's most used adoption platform. And that was a fun ride. It kind of felt like living inside a Hallmark movie to be able to, sorry,
No
uh,
worries.
to be able to just help children find their families and families find their kids and help families reunite. It was a really, really fun journey that I was really blessed to be part of.
Oh my gosh, the work that you've done is so powerful. And I said this on your show when we first met face to face, but I have many friends and family that have made adoptions. And now that you say the name of the URL, I have to ask them. I think that it was adoption.com. The work that you've done and coming from your background in missionary work seems like it really helped you realize this, environment that no one was really paying attention to at that time before, right? Like there wasn't really an option. The internet wasn't as much of a thing. So the fact that you could collide these worlds for such amazing work and provide children with a safe, comfortable home is amazing. Thank you so much.
So what you're talking about making worlds collide is a really important business principle. So if anybody else out there is listening and you're wanting to create a business, what Caitlin is talking about is how you can find your opportunity. So I call these tectonic shifts. So think of like I live in the Wasatch Mountains where there's these huge, mountains where they're skiing and snow and they're gorgeous and where I live there's these tectonic plates that are moving against each other and where those tectonic plates move bad things can happen like volcanic eruptions and I live right by the Yellowstone caldera, the biggest caldera I think in the world and um, and you have earthquakes and things like that. But in addition to the bad, you also have really good stuff. Like where these tectonic plates happen, you get big mountains that are formed, and you can have skiing, and you have water, and you have Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, and it's amazing what can happen. And the same thing happens in business. The tectonic plates of business are constantly shifting, and they're accelerating rapidly. The number of shifts that are happening each year is getting faster and faster and faster. Like the biggest tectonic shift right now is AI, right? Completely changing how the business landscape happens. The second biggest tectonic shift today is what I call credibility marketing. People don't trust businesses anymore, but they trust reviews and testimonials and influencers and things like that. And so you've got to communicate through more credible voices, right? So those are a few examples of tectonic shifts today, and we could probably find 20 massive tectonic shifts happening right now today. Um, and so the best secret is you find an industry, a niche that you want to own, and then you marry it with one of those tectonic shifts. And by putting those two things together, you find something that is a unique business opportunity nobody's done before. And that's what I did with adoption.com is the internet back then was my tectonic shift. And so I wanted to make a difference in adoption. So I put those two together. But today, if you pick your niche and then you find the tectonic shift like AI and you say, how am I going to put those together?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I guess you would call it like a metaphor too for
Mhm.
business because I think a lot of us listeners struggle with, okay, I have a lot of skills and I have a skill set, but I have no clue how to apply that or even articulate what my offer is. Or like how to position it properly. As being in marketing, I hear that a lot. And I'd love to know your perspective in your experience with maybe even another business that you've worked and sold and developed. How does your positioning of your products really launch your company into something that can be acquired or that you're ready to sell over time?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So So let me go back to the second biggest tectonic shift today that we were talking a little bit about, which I think I call it credibility marketing. We have to market in much more credible ways. We can't just buy an ad and tell the world we're awesome, right? That's a highly ineffective positioning strategy, right? Um, but if you go to CEOs today and you ask them what is working, right, they will all tell you, well, I need more reviews. Reviews works, right? I need more client testimonial videos. That works. I'd love more influencers to promote me. That works. I'd love to be on more podcasts. I'd love to speak at more trade shows, right? Everybody knows those things are working, right? And every single one of those is an example of credibility marketing, right? You're finding a credible channel, credible voices, and you're marketing through that. So how do you position yourself today? Um, I recommend you start with a credibility marketing strategy. You find what it is you're going to sell, you find who you're going to sell it to, and then you find out how you're going to market to them in a credible way and through credible voices. You find the influencers that you're going to market through. You get reviews from your customers, you market that way. You get videos from your previous customers and you put those all over your website. Even when you run ads, some of the most effective ad campaigns today are client testimonials, people using your products and services and talking to the world about it. Instead of you telling the world it's awesome. Whatever your customers say is 100 times more credible than anything you could ever say, right? Just finding credible ways to communicate to your audience. Case studies, right? There's lots of ways to do it. One of the ways to do that I'd love to talk about today is podcasting. And when I use the word podcasting, I'm not talking about just audio. Sometimes in the early days, podcasting was just audio. But if you look at the big podcasters today, they're more content engines than they are audio. And they usually start off with a video recording. And then that video is repurposed into maybe 12 to 15 different types of content. You've got long video and short video, you've got audio, you've got blogs, you've got social posts, you've got newsletters, you've got websites, right? There's all of these different ways to repurpose that content. And then you syndicate it out there to many platforms. Um, and then you create lead magnets. Every time you're publishing and pushing stuff out to other channels, you give something away for free. Could be an ebook, a mini course, a cheat sheet, a checklist, something. You give it away for free and you offer it on your content. And then they come back to your website to get that piece of that lead magnet. And when they get access to that or they download it, they give you their contact information and they give you permission to market to them. And you're building your list, right? And then that becomes something you own. It becomes an asset that isn't on someone else's platform, but you have direct permission to communicate with and contact the users together. So you're starting to build your skyscraper metaphorically on land that you own instead of what most people do, where they just build their skyscraper on rented land on Facebook and Amazon and Instagram, right? Those are good. Use those channels, but every time you use them, suck people back in to your platforms, your list, your memberships, whatever the platforms are that you're creating, you want to suck them from other people's rented land to your own land. And then you want to use that content engine to give people value before they ever buy from you. So let's say that we were going back to our single days again, right? And let's say I went to this singles activity and I saw a girl that was really pretty. And I walked up to this girl and I asked her to marry me, right? What do you think my chance would be? She would say yes.
Zero, right?
Yeah, there's
Hopefully.
no way. Yeah, it would probably be negative. She would run the other direction. Um, but businesses today do the exact same thing. They get a lead and they immediately go for the close, right? And then they wonder why they have a 0.03%, you know, response rate on their cold emails, right? That strategy doesn't work. People don't trust that. It's not credible. So go back to that dating relationship. What do you have to do? You have to talk to the person. They have to have fun. You have to make them laugh. They have to enjoy the conversation enough that maybe you can ask them on a date or maybe take them, whatever. And you start spending time with them and they enjoy being with you and you give service to them and you love them and over time then maybe that person is willing to marry you. But you never can go for a cold lead the first time and ask them to marry you. It just doesn't work that way. The same thing is true with the business lead. And so the way you get around that is you have a content engine, right? You create something like a podcast that's audio and video and social and blogs and stuff. And then you're constantly, every single week, you're putting great content out there. You're giving them value. You're finding out what they really care about, and you give them content about that. You find out what their real problems are and you help them solve those problems. And then over time, they get to know you and like you and trust you. And then they can start buying from you, right? Because they trust you. I'll tell you a story. There were two ladies that, well, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, an appointment just showed up on my calendar. I had no idea where it came from. I went and asked my assistant, I asked everyone, who is this? And no one had any idea who it was. It was just an appointment on my calendar. So I showed up, and it was two ladies, and they've been watching my show. They've been binging my show. And they got to know me and like me and trust me. And they got on the call with me. And on the very first phone call, they're like, okay, we're ready to buy. We're both ready to buy your $5,000 a month package, right? And on the very first time I ever talked to them, because I had that podcast that that established the relationship first. So podcasting is a great way to do that credibility marketing as part of that bigger strategy.
Yeah.
Did,
Oh my gosh. So good. Sorry to cut you off.
no, did that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think for all of our listeners as well, because I think we ponder, right? I had another guest on earlier today and she's in marketing and we were talking about social media and the time suck. I feel like podcasting, I have got the highest ROI than any other marketing channel yet, like in my own personal company. Um, and it's for the exact reason, as you mentioned, people are already ready to buy. They feel like they already know me, whether it's I'm on another show of how I got the lead or it's on my show and they've been listening. So it's so great to see and hear that as well. Like as a host, I remember the first time that it happened, I was like, okay, this is worth it.
Yeah.
This
That
is
one phone call is worth, yeah, lots of podcasting episodes that we've done.
Yeah, yeah. So for the listeners, if you're thinking about starting a show and you have questions, please reach out to Nathan. He obviously has a very robust team that may be able to help you or navigate your process. And of course, you can hire them to manage your show. And gosh, that's the only reason why I'm still doing this because it is a time suck if you do it all on your own.
Yeah, and the goal of PodUp is to make it less of a time suck. So there's this big problem that's called pod fade, where people put all of this time into it, like you're talking about time suck, and they're just not getting enough out of it. And this gap is is what causes pod fade. Our goal is to get rid of the gap. So with these 74 tools that are integrated together, the goal, and with our services, the goal is to make it take less and less and less and less of your time, right? And all of this AI we do for you, right? We have a repurposer tool that after you do the video, you hit a button and it turns your content into 15 different, formats, right? I think that one tool saves like, and plus the syndicator tool saves like 4 to 5 hours every episode, right? And then we have all of these monetization tools, the 10 or 11 tools we already have built in the software, and then all of the other ones we can help you implement, and then that helps you get more out of it to where you get to the spot where you're getting a lot more out of your podcast than what you're putting in, and then it makes sense, and then you don't have to pod fade.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I see so many amazing podcasters dropping off like flies like in the past year. And it's so sad because I love their show, and now I can't listen to them anymore. So hopefully they will be listening. And if not, I will connect you with them, Nathan. There's some amazing ladies that had awesome shows that have paused or they take time off. What do you say to a podcaster that's maybe at that point before they've hired PodUp to manage their show? If they've had a few months off from their show, like can they still reignite the show? Do you guys offer rebranding? What's kind of your thoughts when it comes to that?
Yeah, we've rebranded shows before. I don't usually recommend it unless something was really wrong with the brand. Um, if you didn't use the right keywords, you can add keywords to the end, like you said.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons where I've seen people do need to rebrand is if they went way too broad with their first show. That is probably the biggest mistake I've seen people make is they try to say, I'm doing a health podcast, right? And it's like, okay, when you try to be all things health, you're like nothing to anybody because almost anything you publish, most people aren't going to care about. You've got to go, you got to go deeper. You got to be like the autism or the ADHD or the breast cancer podcast or something like that. You got to find your niche. You got to be the longevity podcast. Your chance of success is actually higher if you find the right niche than if you try to be all things to all people. So that is probably the biggest reasons why I would consider someone rebranding. Usually people don't need to rebrand. They need to dial in a little bit better. They need to find out what's working and what's not working. And in the end, they need to take stuff off their plate, get, with software and with a team to help them so that it doesn't take as much effort. And they need to implement more monetization streams so that the show can cover itself. Usually that's the problem, and that's what solves the problem that they're facing.
Yes, yeah. I want to bring up one last topic that we talked about on your show as well and get your opinion for our listeners here on charging to have guests on the show. What we were talking about previously was how to start making money off of your podcast and this longevity that it can feel like sometimes to get the monetization back. What is you and your team's opinion on charging guests to be on your podcast?
I love the idea of charging guests. I think it is one of the best monetization strategies. It's one of the earlier monetization strategies you can look at, and
Yeah.
it's a win-win. It's effective for the guest and the host. So we call them sponsored episodes. And so going back to this credibility marketing concept we were talking about, people don't trust ads. 92% of people don't trust ads. Okay. Um, let's see, 77% of people don't trust essentially anything a business says about themselves. So if you just run ads on someone's podcast or you run ads for a business where they're saying they're awesome, it's probably not going to be very effective for the business. They're probably not going to see a lot of results, and it's probably not going to be something they're going to keep doing. Um, Host read, if you are going to do ads, you are going to do sponsorships. I highly recommend you do what's called host read ads, where the host will actually use the product, make sure it's something can honestly recommend. If they can't, don't do it. If you look at great radio talk show hosts, for example, that's what they do a lot of, and then do a host read ad if you have to do it. But if you want to get even more effective, invite that sponsor on your show and have them be a guest on show. They're willing to pay a lot more money for it than just a sponsorship, and it makes them a lot more credible because instead of you just reading an ad that everyone knows is an ad, they're actually there sharing value. This isn't just an infomercial, right? They're actually teaching something valuable for your audience. And then they can obviously talk about their product or service and what they do as part of that. But it's after they've established this credible authority with your audience. So it tends to help them a lot more. It tends to make you more money. It's a good win-win.
Yeah, that's great advice. I feel like in today's society, so many people want to know where their money's going as well and who is, benefiting
Yeah.
from their investment. And as you're mentioning, with the brand owner or the CEO, or even if it's like the CFO of the company coming and speaking on the show, I can imagine I myself would be much more inclined to purchase after, even
Yeah.
if it's a product.
Definitely. Now, the two things you have to be careful of, like I was saying, number one, don't let it be an infomercial, right? It
Yeah.
really has to be around value. And then the second really important point that you've got to deal with is um, you can't have just paid guests on your show. Um, the point where you kind of make this switch is where you start having more people asking to be on your show than you could have on your show, right? And let's say you do 4 episodes a month and you have 20 requests to be on your show a month, right? Okay, that's a great point to start having this conversation and making this decision. Because then you can go through those 20 applications and say, okay, which ones have the most reach? Which ones have these other shows, these other podcasts where I can be a guest on their show? You find the ones that are the most valuable to you and you let them on for free. You don't want to let them go just because they won't pay you. So you might take 2 of your 4 episodes a month and just give them to the best possible guests you can find. And then you might go to the other 18 and say, I'm sorry, we have way too many applications and not enough spots, but we do set aside 1 or 2 episodes a month for sponsored guests, and it costs whatever per month to do that. Here's the application if you'd like to fill it out. And so you're still balancing the quality and the content trades, and you're not giving that up for purely a sponsored, episode driven show.
Great advice. Oh my gosh, I love it. I know all of our listeners will too. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before you tell us more about how we can get in touch with you?
No, so number one, I'm just grateful to be on the show. But number two, to the audience, if you like what Caitlin's doing, if you're grateful for the effort and the time and effort that she puts into these shows, which I could tell you is a lot of time and effort. The way that you can tell her thank you is wherever you're consuming this podcast, um, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever and like it and comment it and share it and do whatever you can, because that really influences the algorithm and that helps more people to find this great content that Caitlin's creating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course, always love promoting people that are doing a great job with their shows.
I love it. I love that you said it as well, like for the listeners, or we can clip this out, Matt, but it's a lot easier when the guest mentions it instead of us requesting. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. And Nathan, how can we all get in touch with you, learn more about PodUp, how we can start to expand our own shows if we have one, or maybe even just have a discussion if we're almost
Yeah.
ready to start?
Yeah, if you want to do a podcast by yourself, if you're in the DIY stage of your podcasting, go to podup.com. That's PODUP.com. You can get a free trial of the software and you can get a free podcast launch course to learn how to do it. If you are in the spot where maybe you've got a business or you need help, I recommend that you go to podallies.com. That's our done for you podcast production, growth, monetization service. That's PODALLIES.com. And you can at PodAllies schedule a free podcast strategy call. At least for right now, those are all being scheduled with me, like those beautiful two ladies did with me a couple of weeks ago. And I will help you figure out your podcast growth and monetization strategy. Even if you don't work with us, it's yours to use however you want.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much. And for our multitasking listeners, as always, we'll have all the links in the show notes below. If you need help getting a link, DM me. I will personally connect you with Nathan and his LinkedIn account. I highly recommend that you also follow him over there. So thank you so much for being here. This was such a great conversation.